Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. If Canada is the land of bad government, that would make British Columbia the final boss of bad government within Canada. The BC NDP and Premier David Eby seem ideologically against the concept of fixing the province's problems, because fixing a problem implies there was a problem, and Eby's NDP aren't going to acknowledge any of those exist anytime soon. They're like allergic to the concept of common sense. I'm going to prove my point with a clip from Question Period from a couple of days ago. Independent MLA Dallas Brodie from the riding of Vancouver-Quilchena rose up in the legislature to ask Premier Eby what he's going to do about the rising separatist sentiment in the province. BC is not a traditional province to have separatists in. If you were to poll people a few years ago, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, mostly in the West, would want BC to separate from the rest of Canada. Right now, based on a new Research Co poll, it's around 25%. Very, very high for a place like BC. And of course, Eby, upon being asked a question about this, mocks Dallas Brodie and then has a hissy fit and starts screaming about how she's racist. This is what government is like in British Columbia.
Member for Vancouver-Quilchena.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. According to a recent poll, the number of British Columbians wanting BC to leave Canada has grown from 20 to 28% in a little over 1 year. 2 weeks ago, the Premier said that he hates this discussion and that he wants it to stop. These anxieties are real. Mr. Speaker, with the election of Mark Carney, concerns may continue to grow. Will the Premier commit to acknowledging and engaging in meaningful consultation with this growing community about how to restore their hope in the future of this province and in our great country?
I was slightly wrong on the stat. So it's 28% of British Columbians who think that BC would be better off as its own country or joining the United States or something like that. And she even quoted Eby, I think paraphrasing him, saying that he wants this issue to be, to be gone. Why are we even talking about this? It's like that is such a classically BC thing to do as the Premier. An issue comes up. Oh my goodness, why don't we just not have this issue be a thing? It is, but Eby doesn't want to acknowledge that it's a problem, and he's just going to belittle it.
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I am very excited to work with the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. What he is saying.
What he's going to do is let David Eby get away with it on safe supply and decriminalization programs. That's what he's going to do. That's why he's excited.
About his commitment to trade corridors, to energy corridors, to supporting clean energy, consistent with the bill that was recently introduced to the House from the Minister of Energy.
He says this at the same time he's against actual natural gas and oil and gas pipelines or oil and gas development. The man's such a hypocrite. He's in favor of energy corridors because it sounds good, but no. He means like wind farm energy corridors, which is completely ridiculous and would not work at all.
Around our electricity system here in the province and our support for the province of Alberta to help them decarbonize, for our support to the Yukon, support to major projects here to reduce carbon pollution, grow our economy, his support for critical minerals and mining, and the mining proposals we have going forward, the new mines we're opening here in the province, his commitment to make sure people get the training that they need, very consistent with our government's commitment to ensure people are trained for the jobs of the future, but most importantly, for his commitment to all Canadians, that we are going to stand on our own 2 feet, that we will not be apologists to Donald Trump and his 51st state agenda.
What does that even mean? I'm most excited about the fact that he wants Canada to stand up on its own 2 feet. Sorry, which person was going to be Prime Minister who's going to advocate that we don't do that? It's so asinine. It's like him also saying, we're going to help Alberta decarbonize. Dude, Alberta's helping your province not go bankrupt. So settle down a little bit there. BC is a debt basket case, and they're not going to be helping Alberta decarbonize through their green energy initiatives. It's going to probably cause BC to start having brownouts in the near future if they keep pushing this green energy stuff and they don't invest in more oil and gas infrastructure, bringing pipelines into the province so that there's greater access to energy. My goodness.
What we're seeing is people who want to flee the United States and come to Canada. We want to welcome them here. We want to stand strong as an independent and sovereign country. And I look forward to working with the Prime Minister and all my colleagues across Canada on that.
Is the man delusional enough to actually believe that the flow of people between the US and BC is mostly coming into BC? No, it's not. The BC government actually could lower taxes and bring in more revenues in the medium term because it would maybe prevent so many people from just fleeing into the US because they are taxed to death for terrible service, long wait times at ERs, dangerous streets. No, people are not fleeing from the US to come into British Columbia. People in BC are going to Alberta or somewhere else in Canada, or they're going to the US, or maybe they're going home to a different country. My goodness. No, that's not true.
Member has supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And there were no apologies made by me there. The Premier says he supports Team Canada, but has done nothing to address the greatest threats to our unity. Political interference by the Chinese Communist Party, the fragmentation of BC by over 200 bands, each asserting its own sovereignty, and the strangulation of our economy by powerful US-funded environmental groups and other hostile powers that are active in BC. British Columbians are losing hope, Mr. Speaker, and so I ask again, will the Premier engage in meaningful consultation with this critical group of people in British Columbia?
That is a very reasonable question. And in fact, it was a very polite follow-up to David Eby completely ducking the first part of her question. You're about to see Premier Eby explode over that follow-up. That was perfectly reasonable. What have you done to actually tackle the issues of CCP interference? One of his advisors was involved in CCP front groups. Goodness. The band council issue is actually a problem. There's a lot of land that has not just sometimes one band that has jurisdiction over it, but multiple bands who have overlapping jurisdiction over areas where we're trying to start mines or pipelines want to be laid down, or that you're trying to actually, be able to put up housing. This just happened with the Haida Gwaii, where a bunch of housing units have basically been taken over by the band council simply because if you built there and you weren't Indigenous, you don't own your house. Even if you are Indigenous, you don't really own your house because the band owns it. This is actually a major issue in British Columbia. And it's not Indigenous versus British Columbian. It's a really stupid legal system versus everybody because it's not good for Indigenous people at all. And they're now going to pretend that Dallas Brodie is racist for bringing this up, even though, again, if there's somebody in this room who actually cares about Indigenous people and them prospering, it's definitely Dallas Brodie compared to David Eby.
Premier.
Speaker, this member's incoherent and consistently racist posturing in this House against Indigenous and First Nations that do in fact have rights and sovereignty in this province.
Racist? What was racist about that or anything else that she's said? He's just a punk. He's just using innuendo to imply that she said something somewhere. Quote her then. Quote that she said something wrong. What? She is literally just advocating that we don't have every single project be held up by several advocacy groups, both environmental groups and Indigenous groups, preventing actual economic growth from happening, for preventing prosperity from actually getting onto Indigenous land. Because it is, in fact, these stupid land deals that are preventing anybody from prospering in the province, including Indigenous people. And he's going to say that's racist?
Shame on me. Honorable Speaker, her promotion of residential schools denial, her denial of the sovereignty of First Nations and the rights of First Nations in this province continues now. It is disgusting. And
what did she deny? Dallas Brodie rightfully denied that there were not 215 dead children under the Kamloops residential school. It is such a clear-cut fact that they have not found bodies. I don't know why he wants there to be bodies there, but it's such a clear-cut fact that when Rosemary Barton on the CBC attacked Drea Humphrey from Rebel News on that issue, they then had to put out a correction because it's absolutely wrong to say that bodies have been found. It's wrong, and they don't even want to dig them up because they don't want to find out it's probably just a septic field. And guess what? Obviously, residential schools can still be an overall bad thing, definitely, and you can still factually say that, yes, there was not a big, like, genocide happening there. That's obviously true. And the thing is, what it's being used for, what the residential school body issue is being used for, is a catalyst to get people to not question that when a bad land deal is being signed, what are you trying to dump on the history, on the legacy of those children? That is actually how cynically it is used in the province of British Columbia. If you disagree with an obviously bad land deal, you might be somehow besmirching dead children. It's ridiculous. And this has actually been said by the federal government, that as soon as that Kamloops situation started, they said that previous deals that they were not going to sign, we should sign ASAP in light of the Kamloops situation.
And appalling. It advances us not 1 degree. Her denial of the sovereignty of First Nations and the rights of First Nations in this province continues now. It is disgusting and appalling. It advances us not 1 degree in growing our economy, in ensuring we're working with First Nations. What it does do is it drives wedges. It reduces our growth. It reduces our prosperity. It hurts people in real ways, making sure that jobs are not available. And so I ask the member to refrain from her hateful rhetoric, to step back and reflect on the impact of her very real words as a leader in the community. It is disgraceful. And I understand why people in her community have put up signs that say she is not my MLA.
Wow, hardcore NDP people put up a bunch of signs in her riding saying they don't like her. Okay, she won like 60% of the vote, so get out of here. What's he even talking about? Oh, she's denying the sovereignty of Indigenous people. Not at all. Not at all. The problem is having these wide regions of land that a band council only representing about 250 people can just dictate whether or not projects can go forward on them. It makes it impossible to operate in British Columbia, and wanting this system changed is not racist. In fact, this system is what keeps a lot of Indigenous people poor, because even when there's projects on their land or if anything happens, it's just owned communally. It's basically a bunch of socialist states, and it's not a very good way of managing anything. And the thing is, this is the same man who's been effectively helping systematically poison the Indigenous community, just dumping safe supply drugs all over the street, decriminalization, not doing proper law enforcement in Indigenous communities. This is the man who's been making life impossible for Indigenous people in this province, and then he's going to point fingers at Dallas Brodie because she says, hey, maybe we should solve this problem. And he's saying, hey, we consider it racist to solve problems in the province of British Columbia. You get that right, Dallas. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I'm going to be covering British Columbia more in the coming days as stuff starts heating up there, because there's a lot of stuff going on in BC these days. I'm probably going to have some of these independent MLAs on the show. I wish the BC Conservatives were doing any advocacy that Dallas Brodie, Tara Armstrong, and Jordan Keeley are doing right now. The BC Conservatives, for some reason, have been easily cowed into just doing whatever the BC NDP wants to do. If they never even showed up to oppose a bunch of these authoritarian bills like Bill 7 that the NDP were putting forward, they will not oppose any of these crazy land deals. They'll only talk about like Soji, drugs, Soji kind of, not even. They don't even really talk about it fully. They kind of talk about Soji. They kind of oppose drugs. And I guess they call out bad spending and inefficient services in BC, but that's it. That's it. The corruption goes a little bit deeper than just the efficiency of the provincial government. But anyways, so that's it for me today in this video, guys. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that fantastic stuff, and I will see you tomorrow.